everyone to This Week in Svelte episode 103. Okay, 103, which is also the first episode after Svelte Summit, which, by the way, was a blast. If I met you, very happy I've met you. If I did not met you, I'm sorry, but it was a blast. Like, it was very cool. Hanging out with so many people, and all the talks were very interesting, and yeah, like it was a blast. Like that's it. That's the word. I mean, let's jump right into the changelog because there's not much to say. I do have a small announcement after. And we will also explore a bit a brand new feature that got released. So let's jump into the changelog, and let's start with 3 days ago. As you can see, like between April 22 and 3 days ago, it's been a long time because there was the summit, so everybody was extra involved, but now we are getting back. And starting with chore, avoid microtask when flushing sync. So this was mainly a performance improvement. We noticed, looking at the framework benchmark, the usual framework benchmark, that specifically at a certain version, Svelte started to be less performant. Still very much performant, but less performant. And we realized that the problem was that we were adding a microtask when flushing sync. So we removed it and it was fixed. Improve error message for migration errors when slot would be renamed. So I want to show you basically, like, if you have so when you are trying to migrate from Svelte 4 to Svelte 5, to Svelte Legacy to Svelte 5, is better to say, you could have a situation like this. I don't know, let's say that you have, I don't know, let name, it is equal to this, and then you add something like slot name is equal to name. Now, when you try to migrate this, you will get an error. Specifically, migration task, error while migrating Svelte code. This migration would change the name of a slot, and so it was aborted. The reason for this is because if we go back, and let's say that this is names, for example, the actual migration for this would be to rename this to a prop, which is called names, and this prop will actually be used as a snippet. However, if you have name already, it would need to be renamed, which in this case is probably easy. Like, it could work, like you could do something like this, names, names, something like this. But it is not always possible. So, like, instead of trying to figure out and maybe cause a breakage in your application, we bail out. But before it was like a generic error, and now is much better because it's actually saying like name would be renamed to name1, and so it will make the component unusable. So it gives you better understanding of what's the slot that's changing, which is cool. Let's keep it over. Allow character in the supplementary special purpose planes. This sounds like a magic word, I don't know. And if you take a look at the PR, it's kinda, I don't want to say weird, but like there are some characters specifically, something like this, and basically this should compile, like should output to this, I think, yeah, it should compile to these, which are very close. Like this has two thing and this is one, and Svelte was rendered bot with as the first one, and so yeah, basically like the fix was actually pretty simple. If you take a look at the file changed, really like return just that, to not remove those characters, because sometimes like we remove some characters because there's some character that will break, basically it will break some like parsing. Is it lagging? Okay, no, I think it's not lagging, sorry. So, it is lagging? Wait, I see myself lagging. Oh gosh, we are back to the same. Right? It's lagging. It was lagging or it is lagging? So now it's okay. Let me see. Let me try to refresh this. Yeah, okay, it seems to be okay. I don't know why, but I like this. My internet provider randomly like shut down, and I don't know. I need to figure out. But this should be fine now, right? Let me see. Yeah, seems like it's fine. Sorry, guys. Please let me know if you're having any problem. Okay, let's go back to this. So this was Svelte 5.28.3. Let's move to Svelte 5.28.4. Treat nullish expression as empty string. So basically, when there is an expression that like in the end becomes null, it will be treated as an empty string. I don't know specific. Okay, let me see. It is restored. I think I'm lagging a bit. But maybe it's just a matter of... Please let me know if I'm still lagging. Because I can see... Yeah, okay. This now should work fine. Let me know if I'm still lagging. Sorry, guys. I'm having internet problems, and... by the way, yeah, this was a series of PRs that were extracted from a single one that was quite big, but basically, yeah, this is just removing certain expression like from the logic that I think I already showed you sometimes, but let me open this tab again. But basically, like if you take a look at the output, I think I can do it here. Like if you have something like this, undefined or null, yeah, this will basically be treated as an empty string automatically by the compiler, more or less. Prevent invalid big int call from blowing up at compile time. So big int is one of those features of JavaScript that I actually never used. So like this, like big int is if you need to have very big numbers, you can use a big int. I think like most people actually don't use big int, but sometimes it might happen, and so it can have problems. I think it's still extracted by the same PR. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Let me see. Whoa. Oh gosh, like this was a very old issue from Kevin, by the way. Oh, I actually don't know about this thing, but I want to like check it out better. Yeah, okay. Let's see. Emit write error for shadowed invalid rune. So sometimes it might happen that you have something like a variable that is named, you can see here, for example, if you have a variable that, if you have something like this, yeah, if you have a variable that it's named state and you're also using the state runes, it can let me see. I'm running in the same. Sorry guys, I just want to, because emit write error for a shadowed invalid rune. Oh, okay, so the problem here was that if you use a rune, this, which should have a write error, like it should have this is not a valid rune error, it will not show the right error because this is invalid, like this is shadowed, so state, it's actually so the whole problem, sorry guys, I'm a bit all over the place, but the problem is in Svelte, obviously you can access with $sign something, with $sign state, you can access a store. So when you have a variable that's named like a rune, this is sort of a problem. So if we are back here and we do let state is equal to this, and then we do let x is equal to $state, like this, you can see that we get store invalid shape, state is not a rune, a store with a subscribe method. And I think if we actually have a subscribe method here, we still get the, so we return a function just to make it work. We still get an error, like it looks like you're using $state rune, but there is a local binding called state. Referencing a local variable with $prefix will create a store subscription. Please rename state to avoid ambiguity. But you can actually do this. If I do let state is equal to $state, it works. And the reason why this work is because we know that the binding in this case, which is state, it's not a store because you are declaring it with state. So like, I think after that you can also use it, you can also use it like this. So the issue is that when you do this, we kind of assume that state is not a store because you already used it with state. It's a bit weird. But the problem is that since we had this check, this was not working, like this was not getting the usual, hey, state.x is not a rune because of this other check. So this PR actually fixed that, so pretty nice. Let's see, Svelte 5.28.5, fix proxified value in assignment shorthand to the private field. Proxify the value in assignment shorthand to the private field. Let's see. So basically, this was basically, if you do something like this, this is proxifying. So this is when you do the assignment shorthand like this, and C is state. When you do this, it should be proxified, this value, but in the output it was not. So if you were doing something like this, it was not proxifying the output, and instead it should have been proxified. Otherwise you cannot get the like fine-grained reactivity for the whole object. So very simple fix. Yeah, exactly. Just probably adding this thing here. So let's move to more frequently update bind buffered to actual value. So I think bind buffered is probably for video, if I have to guess. And what I suppose it's happening is that yeah, there's probably some problem. Yeah, so buffered binding relies on the progress event, but this progress event does not fire frequently enough to reflect the state. And so the fix was probably to just do it more frequently, either with load metadata, timed update, or seeking. So instead of just using progress, it will use all of these so that you can actually listen to multiple things that can update buffered. So pretty cool. I think huge shout out, by the way, to 7nick, because it's doing a lot of work. I think the last 3 or 4 PRs were his, so pretty cool. We have 5.28.6 fix use transform.read for ownership validator.mutation array. This was a bug that basically so if you are reassigning some prop, so $sign props, let's say that stuff, and you do button on click is equal to stuff dot x is equal to 43. Now, since you are reassigning here, if you take a look at the JS output on dev, you can see that we have this create ownership validator, and when you click the button, what we do is we do ownership validation.mutation, and we do then stuff x here. So what all of this is to prevent you from mutating a state that it's owned from a parent component. At runtime, only in dev, obviously, we do some check inside this ownership validation.mutation that checks like, hey, can you actually mutate this state? Is this state bound, or is just like passed in, and so you shouldn't mutate it? However, as you can see here, we are actually passing the value stuff.x, and you can see that obviously like stuff.x is, in this case, it's a prop, and so to get the value, we need to call the function. If stuff was state, I don't think we would create the validator. Yeah, we don't create the validator. I mean, the point is, there are different ways to access stuff. I think sometimes it's just $props.stuff. I can't remember the specific details of when it's a function call and when it's just accessing the value, but regardless, the point is this was using a wrong way to access the data. So the fix here was just to use transform.read, which basically is, if you want to contribute to Svelte, it's something that you might be interested in. But basically, like every variable in the Svelte compiler has a transform.read method that basically tells the Svelte compiler how that variable should be accessed. So in this case, to access that variable stuff, we need to do a function call. To access, let's say let x is equal to $state, to access x, in this case, is just it's just an empty string, but if we change it x++, for example, you can see that in this case, to access x, it will be $.getX. So all of this to say, like, there are different ways to read a value in the Svelte compiler, like to know how you should read this value, and there is a single like transform.read on each binding, so that we can just call transform.read and get the right way to read a value. Let's see, 5.28.7, fix, remove unnecessary guards that require CSP privilege when removing event attributes. This is pretty interesting. So CSP is content security policy, which is the bane of my existence. Content security policy is something that is very difficult to work with, at least in my experience, because you would have to do content security policy. So to write a good content security policy, you have all these fields, for example, default source, self, image search, self, example.com. And this basically means that this is how you are instructing the browser to know which external sources can or cannot be loaded. So this is very powerful, because if you know, for example, that all your images and all your scripts come from your server, you can just say, hey, don't load anything that is outside of my server. And this basically like prevents XSS attack from loading malicious scripts, and like it prevents a bunch of stuff, because obviously you are closing on what the browser can actually load. In my experience, like writing a content security policy like header, it's one of the worst things that it can possibly happen. And debug it's even worse. Like sometimes you get an error because you cannot load some data, and you need to change that to allow that, and it's just a nightmare. I don't want to do it. But let's go back to what Svelte was doing. So some content security policy. In the client code, reply events accessing DOM onload or DOM error causes CSP violation without unsafe inline, blah, blah, blah. Fortunately, the guards are necessary because element.remove attribute is a no-op when it doesn't exist. So basically, if you take a look at this, inside replay attributes, replay events. So if you don't know, basically when Svelte is hydrating your application, it ships with a very small bit of inline JavaScript that register an event globally and capture every event, so that when hydration kicks in, it can reload, for example, the load event on images, the error event on images. So this is useful because if you do image onload something, that onload function will be emitted before Svelte hydrates. And so what we need to do is get all the events before Svelte hydrates with a small bit of inline JavaScript, and then replay them when Svelte actually hydrates the component. However, this was causing some problem, because with some content security policy, if you do something like this, if you do dom.onload, even if you're not assigning to it, just by reading it, it will basically, even if you're just reading it, it will cause an error in some content security policy. And so since dom.remove attribute is actually an operation if onload is not defined, you could have just do this, like not triggering the content security policy because you're not reading onload and on error. This is why I hate content security policy. Rewrite this structure in logic to handle iterators. This was another, I think it was still from Sevenik. Let me see. I actually took a look at this. No, it's from Ocean OS, which is another very active contributor. So shout out to Ocean too. But basically the point is, when doing something like this, Svelte like rewrite it to do this. However, since iterators can use like basically everything that has a symbol dot iterators can be spread, can be destructured. This was basically failing, and so they actually had a very good idea of basically instead by reusing the original destructuring, but instead of doing this, it's basically spreading the object so that it can actually do it. Like it's basically instead of just doing object at 0 and object at 1, it will actually do the thing that was expected to do and then uses these to proxify it into state. So yeah, this was a very nice contribution. This is the feature that everybody is excited about and that caused a lot of comments on GitHub, but in the end, it is also a very nice number. And it was actually released, so in Svelte 5.29.0, attachments were released, and we will explore a bit more later how they work and like why they are a big deal and stuff like that. So let's skip this and let's go directly to Svelte 5.30.0, which is feed allow generics on snippets. So up until Svelte 5.29, so if I do 5.29, trying to write a generic snippet was literally so snippet test, for example, / snippet. If you wanted to write a generic snippet, it was literally like t extends string. This was a parsing error. So basically just like our parser did not take into consideration the generics. So it was like after the title of the snippet, it was expecting a parenthesis to be there. So now in latest, which is this actually works, hopefully. Weird. What? I don't think it's using Svelte, the latest version of Svelte. Maybe it's cached? No. It's weird. Did I mess something? This should work. Oh, thanks, Boots, because these actually only work with lang TypeScript. So if you have lang TypeScript and you have t extends string, for example, then you can use the generic. Now, one important bit is like generally like the reason why we didn't include generics initially was because at the end of the day, like a generic in TypeScript is generally used for the return value of something. So because you basically like if you see yourself writing a generics in TypeScript and you don't reuse it, you don't need a generic. So the generic is just a way to reuse it throughout your functions. And since in snippet you can't actually define a return value because they are not returning anything, this basically was not included. However, there is one use case, which is If you want to have something like list, which is of type T, and this will be inferred, and then you have, I don't know, a show, which is of type function that get an item T and return a boolean. So if you wanted to have something like this, then the generic is actually something that it's useful to have, and so we added it. And this was just me forgetting that I had to also do it for the legacy parser and not just for the modern parser. And so we published very quickly another fix for the snippet generic stuff. So let's move to SvelteKit, which has one new release 3 days ago with a feature: allow running client-side code at the top level of universal pages layout when SSR is disabled and page options are only Boolean or string literals. So this is a pretty big deal, and the reason why this is a pretty big deal, and let me show you in Svelte Lab, is up until to this moment, if you had something like this in a plus page.ts, oh, that's a bug. Let me see if I can fix it. Yeah, let me do. What is happening? I don't know what is happening. I need to fix this bug. Let's do plus page.ts. Okay. Let me refresh the page because apparently I write buggy code. Now I think I know what happened. So let's say that you are renaming this to plus page.ts, and you do export const SSR is equal to false. Now, if you do something like this, you would expect, since you are doing export const SSR is equal to false, you would expect that it's fine to do something like console, yeah, that's very annoying. It's not my fault to do. Console.log, let me do it like this, and let me copy. So I can do just this. I cannot even paste. Okay, console.log. Let's say that I do document. And I can copy this. If I do console.log document, you would expect this to work fine, right? Because you are exporting SSR is equal to false. And so this should not load on the server. However, up until before this release, this will actually crash your server. The reason is because to check if we need to run this in the server or not, we need to import this module on the server to get the SSR variable. And so this means that this code actually ran on the server. It's only this code that doesn't run on the server. So this was a major inconvenience for single page applications, because if you are building a single page application, you literally don't care about the server. And so this, you want to access this on maybe you want to initialize some client-side library inside your plus page.ts page. So the fix for this was, now with this release, what we do is that initially, instead of just importing the code, we will read the code and do static analysis on it to figure out if SSR is false. So we basically don't need to import it, we just read it. And this basically allow you, if you literally have SSR is equal to false, which is probably the normal thing to do, then it will actually allow you to run even pages that only can run on the client can be initialized inside the plus page.ts. We also removed import.meta.resolve dependency. So this was a dependency that was using under the hood import.meta.resolve, which is something that should be globally available, but it was actually changed some times ago and it will not be available anymore. So since you will still need a dependency of some sort and the code is actually decently simple, no, actually, I think they removed a parameter. Since the code is decently simple, we just rewrote it in the code base itself. Remove component code from server node that are never used for SSR. So if you never use a component as in SSR, the server node will now remove that code from the server. Like, that component will not be in the server nodes, so this is nice. Let's see. Yeah, other. Okay, let's go to Svelte and then we can check here because we have one new release for adapter auto. Remove import meta resolve, and that's it. I suppose this is the same. One new release. Oh no, it's not even that. Okay. One new release for adapter netlify. Upgrade is built. One new release for adapter Vercel. The adapters generally gets upgraded all at the same time. New release for enhanced images. Add validation to ensure plugin occur in correct order. So you need to put the plugin, I think, after SvelteKit. No, maybe before SvelteKit because it needs to change the Svelte code before the Svelte plugin. And so if it was not, like if you add it in the wrong place, now it's actually like warning you and erroring out. And I think, yeah, grid sharp. And ESLint plugin Svelte, 2 new release. Sort attributes, support attach. So since now there is the attachment and now supported. And we also have some new thing like prefer writable derived when you need to rewrite to a state rune and you do it in an effect, it will warn you and say prefer writable derived. Pretty cool. Require event prefix. I don't know about this rule. No add event listener to disallow the usage of add event listener because you should prefer the on function from Svelte. Added support for dynamic classes and ID. Fix no unus Svelte ignore reactive component warnings. Okay. Extension, 2 new versions of the extension. One is to support the generics on snippets even on the extension. Support attachment, obviously. Deduplicate definition for rune mode components. More robust solution project check for less than 5.7 in TypeScript plugin. And I suppose the language server is, yeah, it's closer, is basically the same thing. And Svelte check, same thing. Those are all basically released together, so it's actually a new release for Svelte ESLint parser to support attachment, and 2 release for Svelte TSX, again, same thing. And finally, 1 new release for the TypeScript plugin, more robust solution project check for TypeScript. It's kind of the same, so you get it. And that's actually it. One thing that, let's see, yeah, we do have some, like, this is a new nice thing. It's the repository tracker, so it's showing pull request. I don't know how Antoine did it to, maybe it's just all the pull requests, I would say so. So yeah, I want your opinion on this, and we can actually show this later when we talk about attachment. a bit more. Before we switch to talk about attachment, I want to say that we are doing this. Basically, it was an impromptu Svelte meetup, but I will be talking at in Hamburg at Tech Camp Hamburg, the 3rd of June, and the day after we will grab a quick coffee at 9:30. We will meet at Spiegel, I guess. Yeah, at Spiegel, which is, I guess, like from what he said, it's the Svelte database hotspot in Hamburg. And so, like, if you are in Hamburg or near it and you want to grab a coffee with us, please join us. Now let's move to attachment. So let's talk about attachment. So what are attachment? So you might be aware that right now it's possible to use actions. So you can do function test, and an action is a function that takes a node as input, optionally some argument, and then you can basically operate imperatively on a node inside this. So for example, I can do node.add event listener, click, and I can add an event listener that does console.log args, for example. Obviously, you need to also clean it up, so you can do const controller is equal to new abort controller. And then from an action, you can return an object with an update that gets the new args. And here we can do args is equal to new args. And destroy function that it's invoked when like the thing is unmounted. So I can do this. By the way, this is a nice trick if you want to destructure, like to remove the event listener. You can do this controller.signal. So you pass a third argument with a signal property, and then you pass the controller.signal, and then you can just do controller.abort. So if you do this, this will remove the event listener from the node, which is pretty nice. And now you can do button click me, and you can do use test, and if you pass in, I don't know, 42, now this will actually log 42, which is nice. And this is very powerful in Svelte because this means that you can pretty much use any vanilla library with Svelte with ease, because you can just like initialize it inside an action, add the action to the button or to whatever you need, and the library will make use of it. The action thing, it's very nice. It has a couple of problems. First thing first, like obviously this is kind of a relic of Svelte 4, because in Svelte 4, Svelte actually had to call these methods here because there was no runtime reactivity. So this is kind of a relic of the past, and today, if you really want, and you can just, instead of having this update, because obviously let's say that we have let count is equal to $state 0. Let's say that we have a button and we do on click like this, and we do count plus plus. And let's say that we do count here. If instead of passing 42, we pass count in, you can see that it starts with 0, and then when you click, it increases to 6. This is problematic, however, when this is an object. If I do value is equal to 0, and I increase count dot value here, and then I want to log this, the problem here is that count is never actually changing. So even if I increase this, you can see, I mean, it's still working because it's doing like it's a reference, so it's fine in this case. But this update function will not actually be called. So if I do console log updating args, this will not be called. Oh, it will. Oh, maybe we fix it. Oh, I think it's fine for this. It will not be called for classes because classes are just the one thing. But regardless, so it has some problem, and actually the recommended way for this would be to not use this, but to use an effect inside inside the action, so that you can actually get nice, like you can rerun the thing when it changes and stuff like that. So however, this is still kind of iffy, and one of the biggest problems of the actions is actually another problem, and it's the fact that if you have a component, you cannot use an action on a component. So let's say that I have a button component. I think the update function is called because the count prop is a state. Yes, what I was trying to showcase is that if you use something like a class with state inside, basically, like, since the class never changes, the update function will not be called if a class is deeply reactive. So let's say that you have class counter value is equal to $state 0, like this, and count is new counter. Now value will be state, but counter will not, and so when you click, it will still work. So if you console log args.value, it will still work because, like, it's a reference. But if you were relying on this console log calling args, if you were relying on this to do other stuff, this is not actually called in this case. So really, like, if you have a situation like this, it's best to just do stuff inside an effect instead of just so basically to do this kind of stuff, you would do something like this, like you create an effect inside here, and inside the effect you create this, but you need to read the value within the effect. So let args is equal to args dot, actually let value is equal to args dot value, and this will be called again whenever args changes, basically. Also, let's say that we can do something like this. Yeah, I mean, it's too long now to rewrite this code because it's just to make a point. What I was trying to say is another problem of the action is that, let's say that you have a button component and it's a very dumb component. So you want to just props is equal to $props, like this, and you just do button props. And maybe you want to do it because you want some styles. Let's also do at render props.children just for this, for the sake of doing it. Let's say that you want to do this because you want to style it. So button background 300, which by the way is Svelte color. So let's say that I have something like this, and I want to import button from buttons.svelte, and then use this instead of an action. I cannot do it. So if I do this and I do this, you see that now I cannot use, sorry, I think you are hearing an ambulance. If you didn't heard it, better for you, but so you cannot use actions on components. And this was a major inconvenience because sometimes you do have a situation like this. With attachment, that's not the case anymore. So let's talk about actually attachment. So an attachment is very close to an action in the fact that you can basically just do this and do attach and then pass the function. So in this case, let's say that we want to pass, yeah, I mean, this, I will need to rewrite this. It's fine, let's rewrite it. So basically what you can do is just do this and do $ effect, and inside the effect you can actually, you don't even need the effect. Yeah, correct. Because another difference with actions is that this also runs inside an effect. So this will be actually rerun every time count changes if you want. So you have test that actually, like, so by default, this is just a function that gets called with a node. So you don't get args anymore. So let's say that we just want to log 42 for the moment. So you can attach test. So if you do this and you remove this for the moment, you can see that click me, it's actually working. So this is registering, like it's being called with this button as an input, and you can register an event listener. And I think if you return a function, it will be invoked console.log destroy. As you can see, this is being called when the REPL relaunches because it's unmounting, and you can do controller.destroy abort like this. So if you do something like this, basically it's a very simple way. You can attach test, you get node, you can do whatever you want here imperatively with the node, and as you can see, it's working. However, let's say that you do need some argument. What you can do is, instead of doing this, you can create a snippet factory. So you can do return a function that accepts a node. So you basically take all of this and move it here, and then you do args here and node here. Args. And obviously you need to call it here. So you can do test and you pass in count, for example. Now the nice thing about this is that this code will actually rerun whenever count changes. So if count changes, this will actually change as well. So args.value, so as you can see, like, I mean, this is basically rerunning whenever count changes. In this case, it's never actually changing, but let's say that I do args and I do count.value. This will actually change and be destroyed whenever count changes, as you can see. So whenever count changes, this node gets destroyed and executed again. So this is pretty powerful. It's a bit different from actions in the sense, and we can actually take a look at the documentation of it, in the sense that, where is touch? They are much simpler in the sense that they don't have an update function because it will just rerun whenever the state changes. They don't have a destroy because it's just returning the cleanup. You can have factories like this. Now, something that might catch you off guard is the fact that, oh, I can just run some code here to run it only once. Instead, the whole function is called whenever content changes. So you need to be attention to that. The nice thing is that you can also write inline attachment. So with actions, you had to define a function test up here. With attachment, you can actually do this and just get an immediate access to the node. So I can do console.log node.tagname, and get button. So this is a very nice way to quickly grab the node to do something with it without actually going to the top of the script tag and declaring a function. And I think the nicest thing about this is that if you do button and you use a component, you can actually do the same. Like you can spread it inside a button and it will work. Like so, if you do this and you get all the props here and you spread them onto an element, they will also carry all the attachment that you pass into app.svelte. So let's also look at how you can prevent, for example, in this case, as you can see, you don't want to get the canvas, the context 2D every time the state changes. And so what you can do is instead of like doing this and then doing this, because this will register a dependency on color, you can actually just do this and this will be executed once, because if everything reactive is read within an effect that you nest inside the attachment, then only this effect will rerun and this will not run again. I think we have some question. One thing I like about auction is that I can use a signal that updates only what I want, instead of updating everything again. For example, use table of content page.url.param. But with attachment, I can't, unless page.url.param is used somewhere in the attachment. Exactly, so you can just do this. This is what I was talking about. Basically, if you want an attachment that doesn't rerun, you can just read what you want to read within an effect. And if you need some argument, you can just accept, I don't know if there is not, but if you, instead of just accepting a string, you can accept a function that returns a string and then read that within an effect inside the attachment. So let me show you. Let's say that you have this. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, let's do the example like the canvas example, right? So we have. Let's reset everything. So let's reset everything. So let's say that you have let color is equal $state. For the moment is null. And then let's do input type is equal to color, bind value color. So this is reading the color every time. And then we have a canvas like this. And then let's say function rect. So this function rect is an attachment factory, and you can get the color as input, and then you return a function that accepts the canvas. And when you get the canvas, you can do context is equal to canvas dot get context 2D. And then you do context dot fill style is equal to color, and then context dot fill rect from 0 to canvas dot width canvas dot height. So if you do this, you can do canvas at attach rect color. So if you do this, this actually works. So it works fine. However, if you log console.log getting context, you see that whenever I change this, I'm logging getting context. So I'm running this code over and over again, which might be not what you want, because like for get context is probably not very expensive, but let's say that you are initializing a library here that is expensive. So how can you fix this is you can use an effect here. Now, this is not all that you need to do, because if I do this, you can see that I'm still logging over and over again. And the reason for this is because all of this is still reactive. So when color changes, this gets run again. How can you fix this? Make this a function. So you pass in as a function like this, and then here obviously you need to call it. So when you do this, you can see that we are getting context now, but if I change, we are not getting. So this code only gets executed when this thing gets mounted. And this effect has a dependency on color, and this effect is the only thing that has a dependency on color. So this is basically how you can quickly do it. I need to run now, but we will explore attachment a bit better in the next episodes. I don't know when, because next episodes are packed with a bunch of showcases. So tune in and subscribe if you want to stay up to date. And that's it for today. So thanks for showing up. I hope that you learned something, and I hope that you enjoyed this week in Svelte, and I'll see you guys next week. See ya!